The hospital administrator at Riverside General wanted to make the quietest nurse in his ER into a cautionary tale. He stood at the charge desk with 5 critical patients rolling through the ambulance doors and handed her the room like it was a punishment. He was smiling when he walked away. He was not smiling an hour later. Before I go any further, welcome to Hidden Badges Stories. If you believe the people who carry the most are often the ones heard the least, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from tonight. Stay with me on this one. You're going to want to hear how it ends. On the night of October 14th, a 6-story parking structure under construction, at the corner of Fleming and 3rd, collapsed into its own skeleton during the first serious rainstorm of the season. 5 patients arrived through the ambulance bay of Riverside General Medical Center within 11 minutes of each other. 5 sets of monitors, 5 families pressing their faces against the glass doors in the rain. Director Grant Morrow stood at the charge desk in a pressed white shirt and watched them come in. Laura Finch stood to his left. She was 38 years old, medium height, and lean in the way people who have carried heavy things for a long time tend to be lean. Bright blue scrubs, dark hair pulled back tight, brown eyes that didn't give much away. Her badge said RN, nothing after it. She had worked the night shift at Riverside General for 14 months, and in that time she had never raised her voice, never argued during morning rounds, and never once eaten lunch in the break room with the rest of the staff. Morrow had decided that made her weak. He had been wrong about people before. He had never once understood that he was. Well, he said, loud enough for the charge desk and the 2 residents and the security camera mounted above the medication cabinet to catch every word. Since Nurse Finch has so many opinions about how this department is run, let's give her the wheel. He swept one arm toward the 5 stretchers coming through the double doors. All yours, Laura. A young resident named Marco blinked. Sir, the surgical team is on the 4th floor for the evening seminar. Runs until 10, it's 8:47. Morrow straightened his ID badge. I'm sure she can manage. He walked to his office. The door didn't slam. It clicked shut, which was somehow worse. Dr. Colin Shaw had been standing near the supply alcove. He was 44, 17 years in emergency medicine, and he had never seen an administrator turn 5 trauma patients into a teaching moment. He looked at Laura. She was already reading the paramedic report on patient 1. Bobby, the ER tech, 26 years old and never good at hiding what he was thinking, said, "Who's lead?" "I am," Laura said. The room shifted. Not because of the words, because of how they landed, flat and clean, like a decision made somewhere earlier, and this was only the announcement. Shaw moved to her side. "Tell me what you need. Keep Morrow out of the bays, and find Rita." Rita appeared from the supply hallway at a half-run, still tying her mask. 11 years in the ER, and she had learned 2 months ago to watch Laura Finch the way you watch a sky that doesn't look like a storm yet. Laura did not look up from the report. Bay 1 gets the construction worker with the neck injury. Bay 2 gets the teenager. Bay 3 gets chest trauma. Bay 4 gets the pregnant woman. Bay 5 gets the child. No one argued. That was the first thing Shaw noticed. No one looked to him first. They just moved. Bay 1 held Ty Becker, 24 years old. No helmet recovered at the scene. Paramedic Ortiz followed the stretcher in. Lost consciousness twice en route. Airway's been compromised since extraction. We're looking at maybe 4 minutes since last patent airway. Laura snapped gloves on and leaned over him. His color was wrong. His breathing came in wet, labored pulls that meant the clock was already running. She checked his jaw, his neck, the position of his trachea. Her hands did not search. They went where they were going. Surgical airway kit. Marco reached for the laryngoscope. "Not that," she said without looking at him. "Edema's too advanced. You'll spend the last window he is forcing something that won't seat." Marco froze. "What do you?" "Step back." He stepped back. Morrow appeared behind the bay window. His voice came through the glass. "Nurse Finch, you are not credentialed for surgical airways." Laura did not turn around. "Then find someone who is. You have about 90 seconds. Silence from the window. The monitor dropped, 76. "Hold his shoulders, Rita." Bobby, eyes on the monitor. "Shaw." "Right here," Shaw said. "Stop apologizing with your posture and help me." He almost laughed. He moved. What happened in the next 4 minutes, Shaw would later struggle to describe in a way that satisfied people. Her hands moved without hesitation. No half-second pause between knowing and doing. She secured the airway. The chest rose. The monitor climbed. 84, 90, 96. Marco whispered, "Where did she learn to do that?" Rita didn't answer. She was already following Laura to Bay 2. Bay 2 was Kayla Simmons, 16 years old. Her ID was still in her jacket pocket because she'd been walking, not driving, when the outer construction wall came down on the sidewalk. Her phone was shattered, but a paramedic had written her mother's number on a piece of medical tape on the wristband. The dressing on her thigh had failed. Rita was pressing down with both hands and losing ground. Junctional bleed, Laura said, high, above the tourniquet line. Shaw, we need vascular surgery up here. We need the bleed controlled before she doesn't have enough blood left for surgery to matter. Laura repositioned, not on the wound itself but deep into the crease where the leg met the pelvis, pressing with her full body weight. Kayla's sedated body jerked anyway. I'm sorry, sweetheart, Laura said quietly. Pain means you're still here. Marco fumbled with the IV line, his hands were shaking. Laura looked at him once. Marco. He looked up. Pick one thing, just one, right now. He swallowed. The line. Do the line. He did. The tremor didn't disappear, but it softened enough. Shaw watched her coach him through it. No mockery, no praise that burned time, nothing that wasn't functional. He had seen attendings with 20 years on her who couldn't do that under pressure. The number on Kayla's wristband rang 4 times before a woman picked up. Kayla? Baby? Laura kept pressure with one hand. Mrs. Simmons, this is Nurse Finch at Riverside General. Kayla is alive. She is being treated right now. I need you to come to the ER entrance, but please drive carefully. We need you to arrive in one piece. The woman's voice broke apart. Is she going to? Laura looked at Kayla's face, 16 years old, walking home on a Tuesday. Not while I have hands on her, she said. She handed the phone to Rita and moved. Bay 3. Arthur Dowd, 68, retired high school principal, 2 fractured ribs and a lung beginning to collapse. Shaw handled while Laura went to Bay 4. Bay 4 was Rachel Moreno, 29 years old, 30 weeks pregnant. She had been 30 feet from the construction fence when the wall came down. Glass in her hair. Bruising across her abdomen in a pattern Laura did not like at all. The fetal monitor was rebooting. The backup battery in that bay had failed during the last power flicker. A resident stood at the foot of the bed doing nothing useful. Laura snapped her fingers once. He looked at her like he'd been caught at something. Talk, she said. I can't get fetal monitoring back. The battery. Her pressure is low. She says the baby stopped. Rachel turned her head toward Laura. My baby. Laura took her hand. Look at me. Rachel looked. I am going to take care of both of you. That's not comfort. That's a plan. Morrow appeared at the curtain. He had left his office, which meant he had been watching the security feed. Transfer her, he said. OB is not available and this is beyond. No ambulance runs in this weather. That is not your call to make. I already made it. Shaw positioned himself between Morrow and the bed without being obvious about it. Portable ultrasound, he said to Laura. If the battery holds. Get it, and bring her husband to where she can see him. Morrow said, absolutely not. For the first time that night, something showed in Laura's face. Not loud anger. Controlled anger, which is always worse. This woman may be fighting for 2 lives. If seeing her husband keeps her with us, he stays. She held Morrow's gaze for exactly 2 seconds. Do not make me say what I am currently choosing not to say. Morrow looked at Shaw. Shaw studied the wall. Rachel's husband came in with rain still on his jacket. Laura placed his hand near Rachel's shoulder and away from the abdomen. Tell her something true, Laura said. He said, Rachel, I'm right here. Keep saying it, Laura said. It's working. The portable ultrasound had 19% battery remaining. Laura took it from Marco before he dropped it, angled the probe, and read the grainy image with a speed that made the resident beside her hold his breath. There, she said. A small flutter, faint but present and real. Baby is alive. Mother is still the patient in front of us. Warm blanket, check pressure every 2 minutes, and if anything changes, you call me before you call upstairs. She caught the resident's sleeve before she left. Slow nod if you understood. Fast nod means you're trying to escape the room. He nodded, slow. Bay 5 held Jonah Reed, 9 years old. His father, Tom Navarro, was the site foreman. Tom had brought Jonah to the construction site that afternoon to show him the progress on the building. Something he did twice a year, ever since Jonah was small enough to wear his dad's hard hat like a bucket. When the second section collapsed, Tom had been on the ground floor. Jonah had been waiting by the trailer. Jonah's mother, Maya, was 40 minutes out in the storm. Jonah lay under a warming blanket with his eyes at half-mast. Bobby stood beside him, jaw set. He's fading, Bobby said. Laura moved to the boy's side. His pressure was too low. His pupils were slightly unequal. She checked his abdomen, his ribs, his arm. She checked all of it twice. Morrow appeared in the doorway. He had been following her bay to bay. You're guessing, he said. I'm pattern matching under time pressure. It looks like guessing to people who've never had to do it in a real situation. That sounds rehearsed. It's lived. She leaned close to Jonah. Hey, I need you to do one job, just one. His eyelids trembled. Blink if you can hear me. A slow blink. Bobby exhaled through his nose. Thank Jonah, Laura said. He's doing the work. She looked at Shaw, blood, warmth, surgeon. In that order if we can't get all three at once. Surgical team is still upstairs. Then we buy him time. Morrow made a sound. You keep saying that like time is something you can manufacture. Sometimes you can, Laura said. You just have to know what to build with. She built Jonah's bridge out of small things. Warm blankets, blood products at the right level, pressure support, a neurocheck every 90 seconds, documentation clear enough that whoever came next would understand every decision without having to ask. Not heroics. Careful, layered medicine that created a margin where there hadn't been one. Jonah's pressure moved upward. Laura put one hand on his hair. Good job, buddy. His lips moved. My dad. The room went quiet. People are working to get him here, she said. It was true. It was also incomplete. She held both of those things in her chest and let neither of them reach her face. At 9:18 p.m., the radio at the charge desk crackled. Fire rescue was inbound with one additional patient, the site foreman. Tom Navarro, 41 years old, crush injuries, pelvis fractured, blood loss, ETA 2 minutes. From Bay 5, Jonah heard his father's name over the radio. He opened his eyes. Dad? Laura looked at the ambulance doors, then at Jonah. Clear the hallway outside Bay 6. Morrow said, there is no Bay 6. There is now. They built it from a rolling cart, 2 portable screens, a monitor pulled from the supply hall, and a stretcher wedged under the exit sign near the ambulance entrance. The firefighters came through at 9:21 with Tom Navarro on a backboard, his face the color of old concrete, his pulse present but barely completing the argument. Lost pressure twice during extraction, one firefighter said. Once more in the truck. From Bay 5 through the curtain, Dad. Tom's hand moved against the backboard rails. Laura took his wrist, thready there, then almost not. She leaned in close. Your son is in the next room. He is alive. If you can hear me, you fight. The monitor spiked once, weak then a little stronger. Shaw looked at her. Did he just respond to that? He responded to purpose, Laura said. Use whatever keeps them fighting. Morrow from behind them. That is not evidence-based medicine. Laura's hands kept moving. Neither is using sick patients as a performance review, but here we are. At 9:34 p.m., the stairwell doors unlocked. 2 surgeons pushed through with OR nurses behind them, out of breath and carrying the kind of energy that meant they had been watching the security feeds from the 4th floor. The lead surgeon, Dr. Vivian Carver, scanned the room and then scanned it again. Shaw started to give the report, then he stopped. He looked at Laura. Carver followed his eyes. Laura gave the report in under 35 seconds. 6 patients, including the hallway case. Airway secured in Bay 1. Femoral bleed in Bay 2. Pneumothorax decompressed in Bay 3. Shaw's eyebrows moved. He hadn't told her that. Pregnant trauma with confirmed fetal heartbeat in Bay 4. Pediatric shock stabilized in Bay 5. Crush injury with pelvic fracture in the hallway. Needs OR immediately. Carver stared at her. Who coordinated all of this? I did. Morrow stepped forward. Under my direct oversight, I delegated to available nursing staff while maintaining command. Move, Carver said to him, the way you say it to furniture that's blocking the door. He moved. Tom Navarro rolled toward the elevator. From Bay 5, Jonah called out. Laura stepped into his line of sight. Your dad is going upstairs, she said. Is he going to die? She sat on the edge of the gurney, looked at the boy, looked at the blood on her scrubs, looked back at the boy. He is very hurt, she said. But he heard your voice. I think that's why his heart got stronger when he came through those doors. Jonah's face crumpled. He pulled the warming blanket up to his chin. You did your job too, Laura said. What job? You gave him a reason to still be here. Bobby turned toward the wall. Arthur Dowd from Bay 3, dry and deliberate. Someone in this room is working a lot harder than her paycheck. And then Morrow from the doorway. This is becoming theater. Arthur's voice again, patient as a man with time to spend. Son, nobody in this room is performing. A sound moved through the staff. Not laughter exactly, release. The specific kind that leaks out when fear loses 1 inch of ground. Morrow heard it. His face did something it hadn't done all night. It showed. At 9:51 p.m., 2 people in wet army dress greens walked through the ambulance bay doors. Behind them came a woman in a federal jacket carrying a folder with a red seal on the tab. Morrow stepped in front of them. This area is restricted. The taller officer, a woman with silver-streaked hair and colonel's clusters on her collar, did not slow down. Her eyes crossed the room and found Laura Finch. And Laura's face changed. Not much, but Shaw was watching and he saw it. Recognition, the specific kind attached to history. The colonel stopped 10 feet away, Sergeant Finch. The ear did not gasp, it forgot how. Dr. Carver looked at Laura. Bobby looked at Laura. Marco sat down on a rolling stool without meaning to. Morrow turned slowly. Sergeant? The younger officer answered. Staff Sergeant Laura Finch, United States Army, 3rd Special Forces Group, 18th Delta. Special Forces Medical Sergeant, call sign Wraith. The room did not move. Morrow actually laughed. Once, high and very brief, that is not possible. The woman in the federal jacket opened the folder. It's verified. She is a registered nurse. Yes. She is also a former Special Forces medic with 8 years of combat deployments and a classified rescue record redacted by order of SOCOM. She holds a Bronze Star with a Valor and a Silver Star recommendation that was never processed because her discharge preceded the paperwork clearance. The monitors were too loud. Everything else was too quiet. Morrow's voice went careful. I was not informed. Laura, you were not entitled. The Colonel, Colonel Patricia Sen, as the federal record would later reflect, looked at Morrow the way people look at a problem they have been patient with past the point of patience. I'm Colonel Sen, she said. This is Special Agent Howard Kress, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Inspector General. We're here because Sergeant Finch's name appeared in a federal patient safety flag, triggered by 14 months of anonymous complaints filed from this facility. Morrow went pale. Anonymous. Filed in Army After Action report format, Kress said, which is unusual for a civilian nurse. Every head turned toward Laura. Morrow straightened. Whatever her background, she acted well outside authorized scope tonight. Everything she did will be reviewed for violations. She had no command authority in this department, no surgical privileges. Good, Laura said. He blinked. Good? Review everything. She pulled off her gloves. Review the airway I opened because respiratory was trapped in a locked elevator. Review the bleed I controlled because your vascular on-call was at dinner. Review the fetal assessment I ran because your OB backup protocol has been flagged as non-functional in 3 consecutive safety audits that you personally signed off on. She looked at the camera above the charge desk. Review every second of this night. Morrow smiled, slow. The kind that means a person thinks they've just found something. You're very confident for someone with things to hide. The room shifted. Senna's expression changed. Kress looked at his folder. Laura felt the old weight return. The one she had been carrying since Fort Bragg, since the Kunar province, since the medevac that couldn't hold altitude in the canyon, and she had gone down on a rope with a trauma kit, and reached the soldier and still not reached him in time. Stay small, 14 months of small, it had worked. But 6 people were breathing in 5 bays in a hallway, and she had stopped being small 3 hours ago. My name is Laura Finch, she said. Before this hospital, I served 8 years as a Special Forces medical sergeant with 3rd Group. I ran tactical combat casualty care in places where the nearest surgical team was a 4-hour flight away. I have performed field airways, thoracic decompressions, and emergency deliveries in conditions that don't appear in civilian training manuals. She looked at Morrow. You handed me 5 patients as a humiliation. I treated them as patients. Kress spoke. Sergeant Finch will need a statement. You'll have patient outcomes first. Understood. Morrow tried again. She acted without. Director Morrow. Kress turned a page in his folder. Riverside General has had 4 preventable deaths in the last 10 months. One of them was a 7-year-old boy named Caleb Rios. Asthma attack. He waited 38 minutes for a respiratory therapist. Because you had reassigned your on-call therapist to staff a board reception on the 3rd floor. Rita covered her mouth. Bobby said low and tight, I remember him. Laura remembered the incident report. Respiratory arrest complicated by delayed intervention. No deviation from standard of care. The phrase administrators use when a grave is easier to explain than an empty chair. Morrow, that case was reviewed. By your risk management team, who report to you? Kress looked at him steadily. Sergeant Finch filed 6 anonymous safety alerts in the 4 months after that boy died. All in Army After Action format, all accurate. Every head turned back to Laura. Morrow's professional surface cracked along a line that had been there the whole time, and underneath it was not authority but something smaller and more frightened. He pointed at Laura. You had no right. Laura took 1 step toward him. A child stopped breathing in this ear because you moved the one person who could have saved him, so a fundraiser would have better coverage. Her voice did not rise. It didn't need to. I had every right. Kress's radio buzzed. He stepped aside, listened, came back. My team is coming in. Morrow, you need a warrant. Kress held up the sealed document. Already have one. 2 agents came through the bay doors. Behind them walked Janet from hospital compliance. Someone Laura had seen twice in 14 months and never once inside the ER. Janet kept her eyes on the floor, which told Shaw everything about what she was carrying. Morrow said, "Janet?" Janet did not answer him. She handed Cress a flash drive from her coat pocket. 4 years, she said quietly. "I've been waiting 4 years to hand that to someone who wasn't going to bury it under-resolved." The hospital board chairman arrived at 10:06 with 2 attorneys, and a suspension letter with Laura's name at the top. He read it aloud. The grounds included unauthorized invasive procedures and here was the phrase designed to end everything. Questions regarding psychological fitness given undisclosed combat history. There it was. The thing Morrow had been saving. Bobby said psychological fitness? Rita's voice went flat. She just saved 6 people. The chairman, emotion is not evidence. Arthur Dowd from Bay 3, tired and clear. No, but a warrant is. And then, a voice from the end of the hallway. Don't take her badge. Everyone turned. Jonah Reed stood at the end of the hall in hospital socks, one hand gripping an IV pole, the other pressed against his chest. He was pale, he was shaking. He walked forward anyway. The chairman used his careful voice. "Young man, this is an adult matter." "You laughed," Jonah said. He was looking at Morrow. "When my dad came in on the big stretcher, you were standing right there and you laughed." Morrow kept his face still. "That is not what." Jonah held up the thing he had been pressing against his chest, a small yellow work radio with a clip on the back, his father's. A paramedic had found it clipped to Tom Navarro's vest during extraction, and given it to the boy so he'd have something of his dad's to hold. "It was recording," Jonah said. "Dad always records site audio, safety logs. He forgot to turn it off when the collapse happened." The hallway went completely still. Cress stepped toward the boy, slowly, carefully. "Jonah, may I listen to it?" Jonah looked at Laura. She went to him and crouched to his level. "You don't have to give anyone anything unless you want to." "Will it help my dad?" "It might help the truth." He held the radio out to Cress. Morrow moved, not smart, not planned, desperate. He reached for the radio and for Cress's hands at the same time. Laura was faster. One step, one hand on his wrist, a pivot. His arm came up behind him and he met the wall with his chest and she held him there with one hand, exactly as much force as required, not 1 pound more. Morrow gasped, "You assaulted me." "I stopped evidence tampering," she said. "The camera saw it." Cress nodded to his agents. Director Grant Morrow was cuffed in the records hallway of Riverside General Medical Center, while the entire night staff watched through glass and doorways and gaps between curtain rails. At 11:14 p.m., Dr. Carver came down from the OR. "Tom Navarro is on the table. We found the bleed. He is critical but stable." From Bay 5, "Is that my dad?" Laura went to Jonah. She crouched to his level. "Your dad is still fighting," she said, "and tonight he's winning." Jonah cried into the blanket. Laura adjusted it around his shoulders and did not say anything more, because some moments don't need anything added to them. Arthur Dowd from Bay 3, "Someone should write this down." Bobby quietly, "I think the radio already did." Arthur smiled. A good slow smile for a man with 2 cracked ribs who had tried to help a stranger when the wall came down. By 3 a.m, federal agents had sealed administration. The board chairman sat in a room where his attorneys were no longer the most important people present. Janet from compliance produced files she had been copying for 4 years and keeping in her car, which was, she said, the safest place she knew. At 4:47 a.m., Dr. Carver called from post-op. Tom Navarro was out of surgery, critical but stable. His wife Maya had made it through the storm and was in the family room, holding the yellow radio which Cress had returned to her after copying the recording. Sen found Laura at the charge desk. "You always hated being found," the colonel said. "I wasn't hiding." "No." Laura marked something on Kayla Simmons's chart. "I was resting." Sen looked at the board, 6 names, all of them still lit. "Rest is allowed." "Not tonight." A silence between them that held several years. "You should have left me alone, Patricia." "I left you alone for 14 months. "Not long enough." "Too long," Sen said. "Caleb Rios was 11 months ago." The name settled like weight. Laura set down the pen. "I know. You filed the first alert 3 days after he died." "I know. That's not a nurse who wanted to disappear, Laura. That's a soldier who hadn't figured out yet that the mission doesn't end when you take the uniform off." Laura looked at the board. 6 names, all of them breathing. Not safe, not out of danger, but present, which was what rescue people called winning before the paperwork arrived. She said nothing, but she didn't look away. Morrow pled guilty 5 weeks after that night. The board chairman resigned following the federal report. The recording from Tom Navarro's work radio was entered into evidence, and ran 8 minutes and 42 seconds, capturing among other things the sound of Director Grant Morrow laughing as 5 stretchers came through the ambulance doors. Caleb Rios's parents started a patient safety fund in their son's name. Tom Navarro walked out of Riverside General 22 days after the collapse. Jonah was waiting in the lobby with Maya and a card he had made himself. On the front he had drawn a figure in bright blue scrubs standing between 5 beds with both arms out. He gave it to Laura at the charge desk. "That's you," he said. She looked at it for a moment. "I can tell. You got the hair right. Dad said to tell you something." Jonah delivered it the way 9-year-olds deliver important messages, carefully, with full eye contact. He said, "Some people walk into a burning room to save you. Most of them never wear a cape." Laura looked at the card. "Tell him," she said. "The room wasn't burning when I got there, I just kept it from going up." Jonah considered this with the gravity it deserved. "That seems like the same thing." "It isn't," Laura said, "but it's close enough." She pinned the card to the corkboard above the charge desk, next to the 4 new patient safety rules that had gone up the week before. Bobby put a piece of tape along the bottom to keep it from curling in the AC draft. The rules read, no patient waits unseen, no staff member is punished for raising a safety concern, no administrator overrides clinical triage, and the last one, which Laura had objected to and then accepted because nobody was going to take it down, no one is ever just a nurse. The night shift changed at 7. Laura stayed until 8. On her way out, she stopped in the parking lot and stood in the thin October morning for a while, not thinking, just present the way she had learned to be present after everything. One breath, the ground under her feet, the sky doing what skies do. 6 people had come in through those doors on a Tuesday night. All 6 had gone home. Not unmarked, not without cost, but home which was all any rescue ever promised. She had spent 14 months at this hospital practicing the art of being invisible. She had been very good at it, and invisible had kept her safe right up until it started keeping others in danger instead. That was the thing about silence she had taken too long to understand. It was never just yours. It belonged to everyone standing near you. It covered what you let it cover, and some of what it covered should never have been covered at all. She clipped her badge back on and walked inside. 2 chest pains and a possible stroke were inbound. Bobby was already updating the board. Shaw was on the phone. Rita was stalking Bay 2 without being asked. "Finch," Shaw called from across the room. "You're off the clock." "I know," she said, and picked up the marker. "What do we have?" Nobody told her to go home. They were already too busy following her.